Well, there we go. I see our faces in OBS, so that's a huge win. So I'm going to go ahead and say, actually, I can say good afternoon because if I have my time zones correct, you and I are in the same time zone. I believe you
We
are in
are.
Central, just like me. So good afternoon, Baruch. How are you?
A good afternoon, Nate. I am great. How are you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. You know, my son started high school officially last Friday, and today is like the first full day with everybody. So, other than adapting to like admitting to myself that I'm old enough to have a freshman in high school and everything that entails, I think I really can't complain too much. Can't complain.
Yeah. No, that's having the schools back is huge. We started like almost a month ago, already in the beginning of August,
Wow.
because they do they prepare for like snow days
Sure.
in the winter, so they kind of plan. They start 2 weeks prior, so they will have those 2 weeks to give snow days or maybe COVID days. Go figure how it will work this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to have school back for the kids. Yeah,
As a
thank
Minnesotan,
you. Yeah,
I do have to
yeah,
take some what's the word, objection here at a snow day in Tennessee because Minnesota we have snow. Actually, we have cold days sometimes. That's happened here where we've had schools canceled because the temperature was too cold for the kids to wait out for the bus, so they just shut down schools. So I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm although I think you're more on like that ice line where you get the
It is.
frozen stuff.
Yeah,
That's worse. I'd
and
rather have a foot of snow than a quarter inch of frozen precipitation.
yeah. So it's actually the more appropriate term will be ice days, not
Right.
snow days.
Right.
As you know, it freezes through the night. They just decide to not to put vehicles, buses, and cars on the road. So this is where they declare like this snow day, but it's actually an ice day. That's correct.
And that's much worse. I know my wife and I, this was a few years ago, were coming home from the Y on like a Saturday morning, and it was fine when we got there, but then while we were in there, we had kind of that frozen rain and leaving, and we're only a mile and a half maybe from the Y. It was slipping and sliding, and it was supposed to be garbage day in my neighborhood. The garbage trucks just stopped. They
Yeah.
couldn't do it, and so it's like, yeah, we're gonna push that out. Sorry, everybody, but yeah, I again, I'd much rather have a foot of snow than a half inch of frozen
I
rain.
agree, but yeah, it is what it is. They have like they schedule, they plan for 10 snow days, which
Smart.
actually means ice nights,
Yes.
not snow days. But
But
yeah,
see, you can get Nashville hot chicken officially. I can't. So
yeah,
trade-offs,
yeah.
trade-offs. But
Oh no, I mean the barbecue and the live music
yeah, yeah,
and everything else. No complaints,
yeah.
definitely no
No,
complaints.
it's a great spot.
Great.
No getting around it. So why don't you just give a little bit of your background, your bio? How did you find yourself into this crazy space that you and I inhabit, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my name is Baruch Sadogurski, and I am head of developer advocacy with JFrog. My business card says chief sticker officer, just because I can. I go to conferences and give away stickers, and we have awesome swag and stickers in JFrog, as most of you, I hope, know. I've been doing this developer relation thing for 10 years now, 9.5. Started in JFrog in 2011. Before that, I was for another decade Java developer and then architect. And the transition to developer relations kind of happened naturally. The founders of JFrog knew the importance of developer relations from day one. They didn't know the term, they didn't know the framework, the specifics, but they always realized how important it is to make sure we speak with developers, we hear from developers, and we kind of give them no bullshit, but instead the real deal. And in some point, a couple of years after they started JFrog, they realized that they themselves don't have the bandwidth to do that anymore. So they reached out. We worked in a previous company together, so it was kind of natural for them to think about me. And uh, they kind of came to me and said, "Hey, Baruch, we need how do they put it? Secretary of State for JFrog. Someone who will be able to be there and speak with everybody and hear everybody out and negotiate with them and talk with them and what's not. And the rest is history. I went ahead, searched for the right terms, started to do the research, and for the longest time, I think 8 years out of those 10, I was the developer advocate of JFrog, the just one. Mostly because people who do the developer advocacy, the field work, they're not necessarily the best managers. And eventually, I managed to hire the best manager for myself, Stephen Chin, who now runs developer relations at JFrog. And he is amazing. In like 1 year, we went from department of one to, I don't know even how huge it is now, 20, 40 people, 5 developer advocates, community managers, engineers, who's not. And it's amazing.
Nice. So how did you decide as a young Baruch that you really wanted to play with computers? What led you down this path? What poor life choices led you to software?
Yeah, the poor life choice was going into mechanical engineering in high school.
Ouch.
Yeah, I ended up in the army doing maintenance for like heavy equipment, greasing tanks and lifts, forklifts, and that wasn't nice. I mean, in Israel in the summer, it's like 100 degrees and you're greasing a forklift.
Not fun.
No, and then I decided I definitely need to work in the air-conditioned environment, and that was that.
A lot of us, I like to phrase it as we're indoor cats. We're not the feral cat running around outside. We're really let's just keep us inside where it's temperature controlled. My cat is over my shoulder. You can tell he's really engaged with our conversation as he is snoozing away contentedly. But I often joke that my cats have no concept of the fact that the world is not temperature controlled, that if you leave the house, it gets hot or cold or rains or snows. So yeah, I'm with you. I'd much rather be indoors. I remember having this conversation with a gentleman that was a linesman, I think it's called, the guys who work on the big power lines, that stretch across the country. And I remember saying to him, there's about 5 or 6 days a year that I wish I had an outdoor job. And he just looked at me and said, you know what? I have the exact opposite. There's about 5 or 6 days I wish I had an indoor job. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Everybody are in the right places.
Exactly. Well, Code with Sean says your cat only lets you live because you feed it. My son shared this meme with me, and it starts with a dog, and the dog says, wow, this person feeds me and they pet me and they give me a house to live in. They must be God. And then shows the cat, and the cat says, wow, this person feeds me and they pet me and they let me live in this house. I must be God. And that's cats in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They definitely do us a favor that they hang out with us.
I think so.
Everyone who has a cat knows that.
Right. I just saw a headline recently that said our cats are actually stressed by the fact that we're home all the time now. And then our dogs love it. Dogs are happy, and cats are like, "Dear God, please, just humans leave. I need my alone time." But
yeah. So we were away for like a month and a half, and that was too much.
Yeah.
For our cat. Yeah, he was like, yeah, he didn't speak with us for another month after we get back.
Checks out. No, I do want to talk a little bit about swag, because I agree. You all have some of the best swag in the business. So tip of the hat to you. I mentioned this in the pre-show, but I think my wife's favorite conference t-shirt is one of yours. And I'm paraphrasing. It's the one, you've killed the build, or you broke the build, prepare to die, macing off of Princess Bride. And so, tip of the hat to that, buddy.
Yeah, so surprisingly, it's obviously one of our all favorite t-shirts because it's so good, so on point, and Princess Bride is just, the cult.
Right.
It only works in the US.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, outside of US, rarely people know about this movie.
Interesting.
We obviously have the normal stuff that everybody know, the
Right.
superheroes and James Bond and what's not. But this particular one, which I also consider one of the best, it's just, it's completely above the head of most of non-Americans, which is a
Interesting.
shame because it's a brilliant movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's one of my favorites. And there is it's funny you mention that because having spoken at a lot of international events, there's always that moment of pause where you think, does this joke work in this culture? Does this story work in this culture? Do I need to change it? And I'm amazed actually how often it does. And it's a reminder to me of how, you know, multilingual so many people are, that I can tell an American joke with American sort of takes on things and they still get it and they laugh, and it's like, oh, all right, I guess thanks to, friends and
Yeah.
everything else. I don't know.
I kind of take it for granted being, twice immigrant and always like looking for all the cultures and everything. So for me, this is taken for granted. I've been surprised by the opposite. Like, for example, with No One Gets the Princess Bride.
Sure.
I'm like, come on, people.
Culture yourself. Come on. Maybe that's it.
There are some things that everybody should watch.
Agreed.
Princess Bride is one of
Agreed.
them.
100%. Yeah, maybe that needs to be like the opening slide of our presentations is, you must know, like, instead of prerequisites, like, here's the cultural touch points that you need to have to understand what I'm about to talk about. Maybe. I don't know. The
Mhm.
spitball. We'll workshop it. But so the other, I guess, speaking of branding, and I've always meant to ask you this, and so I'm glad I get the chance to pin you down here today. As long as I've known you, you've always had the top hat. What's the genesis of that as part of your brand? Where did that come from? And what sort of drew you to that?
So this is all thanks to my wife, as other good decisions in my life,
Amen to that.
obviously. Yeah. So she's a marketing professional, and she's in branding. Actually, this is what she does.
Nice.
And her take on branding is a lot all based on archetypes. So she kind of tries to figure out what archetype the company is, what their behavior is, how people see them, and then try to double down on that and build a coherent picture of the brand in that particular archetype. And I am apparently one of her projects. And yeah, that's on her.
Seems fair.
We went through some mall and went to a hat shop that's for the fun of it, because who buys hats? And she's like, try this one. And she's like, okay, this is you. This is your new image.
Just simple as that. She's like, yep, that's it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, because I know I've certainly seen you have a little bit of that steampunk aesthetic at times when you and I've hung out. So
Right,
so
right.
there's
Like
that.
conferences and stuff. Yeah. And that's the evolution.
Right.
That's like that's the compact version. And,
Yes.
when I go like full steampunk, that's the, that's the end game.
Amen.
So yeah. So yeah, and it actually works. It works amazingly. Think about Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world. Like after Dev Nexus, people
Yeah.
shouting at me like across the terminal, "Hey Baruch, I saw your talk. It was great." It works. It works.
Well, I agree with Code Sean. He says, I'm one of my wife's projects too. I think that is truthful of all of us that are, well, hopefully our spouses think enough of us to turn us into projects. But, that does seem to be a bit of a universal, to say the least. So I'm with you there too, Sean, I'm quite certain. Although, mine's over there. I don't know if she's paying attention or not. Some days she is, some days she isn't. Well, what I've learned, and I don't know, maybe you've had this experience too, working from Homebrew, but they're listening when they're not listening, and I'm amazed how many things I can say, and that just kind of and then I make one little comment, and I can tell that was in fact glommed upon and
Yeah,
heard, and I
yeah,
find out
yeah,
later.
yeah.
So
Yeah, you
yeah.
can never know. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Sean. I mean, maybe I think we're all broke in unique, interesting ways, and I think it speaks to the generosity of the human spirit that so many people are willing to invest in trying to fix those of us that are broken. So thank goodness for that, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yep.
So you recently moved to I think is it fair to say it's the music capital of the U.S. or is it just the country music capital? I mean, Nashville's got quite the music scene.
Oh
What
yeah, yeah.
what
The
drew you to
music.
Nashville?
Yeah, yeah. So we are in one of the Nashville suburbs in Franklin, Tennessee, and we kind of figured out with COVID and everything that it's not that I've been in the office a lot before that, but it was kind of implied that JFrog, everybody go to the office, and this is my office there in California. So this is where I kind of have to be.
Mhm.
But then with COVID, it actually struck that, I never go to the office anyway, so we don't really have to stay there. And we started to look for areas that will work better for our family. And we moved in the beginning of this year. It's been like a little bit more than half a year for now, and we really love it. It's amazing here. The people are wonderful. The weather is weird,
Yeah, it's fair.
but it is very very weird, but in a like a funny way. I mean, it's fine. And everything else is amazing. The people are amazing. The food is amazing.
Yes.
Nashville is amazing. Music is amazing. I mean, you go there on Broadway, they have like those 4 stores high bars when every floor has a different like live music playing. It's been great. So yeah, really love it here.
I have very fond memories of a donut shop not too far out of Nashville, and I'm blanking on the name of it. I have to ask my five daughters. She said, "See, she's listening." God
Yeah,
dang
yeah,
it!
that's what we spoke about,
Yeah,
right?
see,
Boom.
they're hearing, and then God, all right, I
Yes.
got to be careful. I got to be careful. The cat could care less, but my wife is clearly so. The five daughters donuts, I have very fond memories of, and I know there's also some very very good coffee because that is one of the superpowers that I've developed over my career is being able to find very good coffee in whatever city I happen to be in. So
Yeah,
you're in a good
so the
spot.
five daughters are actually in like a mall that it's called the factory.
Okay.
It's an old factory that now it's kind of like a mall. There are like little artisan family shops of crafts and souvenirs and what's not. Five daughters there, and the coffee that you speak about, it's called the Honest Roaster Coffee, and it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many good places. All right, so Kodushan says, "Well, as a project, you'd better get things right." Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the projects that our spouses take up. Mine has been trying to get me to eat better for how long have we been together? I don't even want to get into that question because that'll make me
Oh,
feel really
same
old. But
same here, but I appreciate like how gentle it's done. It's not like it's very subtle and it makes its
yeah,
mark. So absolutely.
no, I figured that out. You speak of it being subtle. This was I don't know at what point this occurred to me, but she had made like this vegetarian quesadillas for dinner, and I made some comment about like, didn't we just have these recently? And she looked at me and said, "Well, you come up with a vegetarian meal then, tough guy." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, at least once a week I try to make a meal without meat in it." And my son and I both kind of looked at each other. My son is very much a meatitarian. I mean, getting my son to eat anything that's a vegetable is a trick. There were some times where we actually would blend it up and put it into things and he wouldn't notice. There was a cookie that Christine made for a while that he didn't realize had chickpeas in it until she told him it had chickpeas in it. Then he wouldn't touch them, right? But it's always that magic of sneaking that in and just sort of seeing if we noticed. And obviously, neither he nor I were perceptive enough to figure that out. But it is a challenge to find something vegetarian that a 14-year-old will eat. So
Oh yeah.
anybody
Yeah,
that has
yeah, I hear
recommendations, I'm
you.
all ears. So Hoda Sean's been married 23 years. That's a long time. That's a long time. Congratulations. Yeah, that's not easy.
Hmm.
Oh, let's see. What else do we want to talk about here today? Oh, so when you're not dealing with software in this crazy world you and I inhabit, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
So we are since we kind of like moved we built we bought a house in Gilroy, like in California, like 3 years ago, and then we moved here, and now we're renting here, and we're going to move soon. So my hobby is moving.
Nice, nice.
Well, not really. What I wanted to say is smart home. The thing
Okay.
with smart home is that it's a very finite project, right? So you spend, I don't know, like maybe a month in learning all this stuff and setting it up and playing with it. But it's just so much you can do at the moment with the current level of technology in automating your home, make it smart and everything. Right. So you do like sensors, you do doors, you do like Windows voice control, lights, obviously, uh, AC automation, and then it's kind of done. The fact that we are moving all the time allows me to do that over and over again in each and every new home, improving my skills
And
and
upgrading.
what you can do. So, although this hobby looks like it should die in some point of time just because you did everything and everything works, we managed to keep it going every time we move. We're like, my wife's like, what the hell? I'm walking into a restroom and the lights do not turn on. Or, you know what? I open the window and I expect to AC to shut down in 10 minutes and it's not.
Right.
I mean, go do it. And I'm like,
That's slick. Now, do you have any concern that at some point you're going to ask your house something and your house is going to say, I can't let you do that, Baruch?
uh, well, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you're not worried about recreating Hal in your own home?
I frankly believe that machines are smarter than humans
Okay.
in a lot of ways already,
Okay.
especially the mundane tasks like the repetitive things that I, for example, really suck in. So I really truly believe that good machines can really do work better than I do. Like, for example, driving in traffic,
Yeah.
right? So I put autopilot on, and that's a blessing. And if it won't let me merge to another lane, probably there is a very good reason. There is a car in my blind spot. So thank you for not letting me do that.
Yeah.
Right. And is the shame that's the same with the house, I guess. In some point of time, I cannot think about scenario that it won't allow me do something, but it will probably be for the best. I know, like running AC to extreme hot or cold, right? That would be a good decision not to let me do that because I don't know, my pipes are going to freeze in the winter.
Sure.
So thank you for protecting me from myself.
Yeah, Kodo Sean caught my reference. I can't let you do that, Dave. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, it's Hal. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just, you know what?
You're okay with it.
I don't know. I'm not. I'm optimistic by nature, so I don't see the robot apocalypse coming anytime soon.
I, for one, welcome our robotic despotic overlords.
Yeah, I do. I really think they do more good than harm, especially for people like me who are terrible in mundane, repetitive tasks.
Totally. I just saw something recently, I think it must have been on John Oliver, talking about like essentially state-sponsored hacking and how now some people are hacking into these connected thermostats and basically locking the temperature at like 85 unless you give us some Bitcoin or whatever, and then we'll unlock your thermostat. And so I'm always, because I'm like you, I love the idea of more connected everything, but then I'm also like, okay, how secure is this thing that I'm now adding onto my network, and what is that going to allow potentially a nefarious actor to do?
Yes, but also security through obscurity, I think works. And the obscurity that I mean here is like me personally.
Sure.
There is nothing of an interest in hacking, in targeting me specifically, and just being a victim of a random attack, the chances are like winning a lottery or something, right? So there is something to it, but it's always a trade-off.
Sure.
You cannot be 100% secure anyway. So yes, I expose myself more, but I also get much more. And you know what? If they're going to lock my thermostat, I'm technically savvy enough to know how to reset it.
Sure.
All right. So I mean, I'll be fine.
Sure.
And you know what? For the locks, maybe they're not secured. Hell, half of my door is glass.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there are much easier ways to enter my house than to hack my lock.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I've thought about that. There was a point in my life where I was very adamant about shredding basically anything and everything that came into my house. And I've gotten a lot less dogmatic about that, mostly because I realize if somebody really wants to hack my stuff, they're going to hack my stuff. And it's sort of that adage, I don't have to be faster than the bear, I just need to be faster than the slowest person. So as long as I'm not the easiest for them to get into, I'm probably all right.
But or the most interesting.
That too. Yeah, I try very much just to not be interesting. That helps.
That's the combo that I try to stick to, right? Not to be the easiest and not to be the most interesting too. Right. I mean, yes, they can go through my garbage and probably apply to a credit card in my name. What are the chances that they will pick my garbage out of all the garbages in the city?
Right. Yeah, and they're more likely to have some algorithm that's generating it, and I've had that happen a couple times actually between my wife and I, where they just get the number, they just randomly generated it, and it worked, and away you go.
Yeah, but that's lottery, right? That's exactly the same chance.
Nothing I could have done to prevent it.
Yeah, and you know what? It was like when Equifax shitstorm and everything, and everybody like rushed into locking their social security numbers. I'm like, now if it's really like dark net and everything, and they do like what it's called, the identity theft, I should be like very unlucky if they just go ahead and pick me. Right. And then I happily learned that it was actually the Chinese that hacked it, which kind of eased my mind, because now I know that this info is not out there in the darknet, but securely stored by the Communist Party. I feel good about it.
There you go. Yep. Probably fine. So yeah, Kodashan mentions that the first version of the Google Nest had an undisclosed microphone in it. And I remember seeing that about some other product too, where it had that, I can't remember if it was a microphone or a camera, or maybe it was both, and it wasn't discovered until someone did a teardown, and they're like, what is this doing in here? And they're like, oh, we didn't activate it. It's like, yeah, but you had it in there.
It's the same. It's the Nest thing. But I mean, okay, let's say these have the microphone and they start to record you.
Sure.
Wow. Dude, I mean, good luck. My life is so fascinating.
Right.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, there's some analyst who just fell asleep, listening to
exactly.
the mundane stories of my life.
So what? So you got access to microphone in my apartment. I congratulate you. Now you'll probably be bored to death. I mean, really, well, what's the point?
Yeah. Again, don't be interesting, right?
Yeah, and I would say don't do in private what you would be ashamed to be discovered in public. And then you're good, right? I mean, if you embrace the idea that there is no privacy, you're safe.
Well, there was a person, I'm blanking on his name, who took that to the extreme of essentially live streaming his entire life. Everywhere he went, had a camera that was, you could log on, like, I don't know, Live with Sean or whatever it was, and you could see where he was, what he was doing, who he was talking to the whole time, and that's kind of fascinating. I guess
I think that's kind of that's the point, right? If you consider that there is a possibility that the privacy does not exist anymore, and your private posts can become public one day, and what you say about other people can become public, then don't say bad things about other people. It's not a bad idea to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I mean, if they hack into my Alexa or whatever, of course, she triggered, then enjoy. I
Yeah.
mean,
You know, Code of Sean says he works for a security company. He's always careful, not just about data, but others as well. I I agree that that's where it gets a little iffy is how much of our data is controlled by people who clearly aren't as careful as they should be with it.
uh, embrace the idea that they're not. And then I go like with the privacy, like to hell with it. It's fine. And for security, it's obscurity, as we spoke.
Sure.
I sleep pretty solid at night, knowing that both our privacy and security are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so Sean mentions there's corporate espionage as a thing too. That's a very real deal, you know, and I'm
Oh
amazed
yeah.
at how
Oh
much of
yeah.
that goes on. Some of it above board, some of it just competitive intelligence gathering, some of it maybe more in the gray areas of legality than maybe companies would like to admit. But
That I agree 100%. But here, first of all, thankfully, it's not really my problem.
sure.
Right. We have our IT security, whoever, and I just do what they tell me to do
Right. Right.
from one side. And from other side, again, I'm probably not the most interesting target of industrial espionage and not least technically savvy.
Yes, and to your point, I don't think there's too many folks who desperately want to see some photo off my phone.
Yeah, exactly, right. And if they are after our like work communication, there are probably weaker links, which, as you mentioned, I don't need to be.
Right.
This strong is just stronger than
Right.
the next guy.
Right,
So
exactly.
yeah, no, I sleep well knowing that both my security and privacy are gone. That's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah, I hear you there. Is there any advice that you wish you could go back in time and give your younger self? Anything you now know that you wish you'd known then?
Invest in Bitcoin.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. Bitcoin, Apple
Uh,
stock, you know, Netflix, Amazon. Yeah, I could see a few of those things. Yeah.
yeah, no, but jokes aside, I would say invest in soft skills and human interaction and understanding humans more and learn how to deal with them. I think it wouldn't help because the younger us are much more attracted to machines and hard skills than soft skills,
Right.
and it's just something that comes with an age. But yeah, I think if I had 20 more years in deliberately learning on how to deal better with humans, I would be better off.
Yeah, that's a great point because I think so many of us get into this industry because it's easier to work with computers, more predictable, whatever you want to say, it just fits our
Exactly.
personalities better. And then you realize at some point in your career that it's the other human beings that matter an awful lot. This is a collaborative game. But we don't ever teach that. You know, I mean, I teach at the University of Minnesota in our grad program, and that's just not part of the curriculum in computer science, software engineering, any of the technical spaces. We seem to ignore that, which is strange. So thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Have a good meeting. But boy, it's pretty critical, isn't it, to being successful, being able to work with others and understand how that works and empathy and compassion, all that stuff.
Exactly, and there is no escape. I
No,
mean, you can try to convince yourself that it's all about computers, and you write good code, nothing else matters, and you'll live in denial for a number of years. And
yep.
the end of the day, you'll get back to realization that it's all about people anyway.
Right, right. Yeah, I've been putting together this new workshop thing around kind of software engineering fundamentals, and a big part of it is soft skills, unsurprisingly. And it's remarkable to me about how consistent and important those things actually are, and how short shrift we give to them. You know, which is really too bad. But but I think it's pretty vital to success in this industry is being able to, work with other people and realize that's as much about this job as anything else. So many of the problems we run into in a software project aren't a technology decision. It wasn't, oh, we chose the wrong database or the wrong language. It's, oh, we had a misunderstanding. Like we thought you meant this and it turns out you meant that. Oops. Rinse, repeat.
Exactly. And we don't, when we're young, we don't give it enough attention, and that's the biggest problem. But as I said, I don't think it would really change anything, because there is a very long period of time when we truly believe that computers are about hard skills and about
Right.
computers. And I don't think that me telling the younger me to think differently would help. I think it's a matter of personal growth and maturity to realize that. And I don't think device can actually change that.
Yeah. Well, some of these things, it's so clear you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah,
This is one of the
exactly.
hardest
Yeah.
things about being a parent is realizing that there's certain lessons that I try to impart upon my now teenage son that he's just got to feel that pain before he's going to understand that dad's right about this one. And, it's just the nature of the beast. I'm sure we did the same thing, right? There's no doubt in my
Yeah,
mind.
no, absolutely. And I think the real talented educators, instead of preaching, they steer people towards getting this realization and kind of inception of ideas, right? And in the end of the day, your work is done when someone kind of has this light bulb moment and realizes something that you try to steer them towards. And when it's their idea, this is where it's really efficient.
Well, it's interesting you use that phrasing because I remember years ago working at this organization and we had this weird build problem, and I don't remember any of the specifics. It was too long ago, but I suggested using Groovy as a way of solving that problem because I'd ironically enough just seen an example of that at a conference, and I'm like, hey, this would actually help us. And the guy who was running our build, I think his quote was something along the lines of, "We don't resort to wacky workarounds here." And I'm like, okay. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of your build is a wacky workaround, so but then the funny thing is, I find out after I left that company that this same person discovered Groovy and started doing a whole bunch of stuff in Groovy, and I'm thinking, all right, okay, it can't be my idea, but as long as it's your idea, then it's fine.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, there is another problem with that you probably won't get credit for it. And this
Yeah,
is, a lot of environments are judged by that in the end of the day. So you kind of miss the brownie points.
right.
But yeah, I mean, this is another maturity state when you care about that less and actually care about the end result. And in the end of the day, if this guy started to do the right thing, this is what gives you comfort, as opposite to, hey, I feel credited for this idea that now everybody are doing. And that's another step in this maturity that you cannot learn from the wisdom of someone else.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way of phrasing it. You have to get to that maturity level of knowing I got what I wanted done, even if I didn't maybe get credit for it. We made the organization better, so take the win. But so the real Dan Vega tells me here that a big portion of the curriculum at the boot camp he worked at Tech Elevator there in the OHIO was all about soft skills. That's really great to hear, Dan. And that's not always universal, interestingly enough. And then Neil, of course, has got to bring a little bit of Ted Lasso into it. I can't believe we went 39 minutes without mentioning Ted Lasso, so let's fix that problem. Don't let the wisdom of age be wasted on you. Ted Lasso season 1, episode 4. Look at Neil going all the way into the quote there. So Neil, all I want to say is let's invade France. Life lessons. We cannot get angry over them for having to learn it themselves. Totally agree, and I do think that's one of those challenges as we get further along in our careers, we become parents, etc. Is realizing that again, you kind of got to stub your toe on some of these problems, and you have to sort of hide or suppress that. But I want to prevent the bad thing from happening to you. It's sort of like you got to let them fail.
just like that, we are very deep in the DevOps discussion for a
Yeah,
while now. I
right.
just
See how that works.
realized. Yeah, it's all DevOps. Yeah, you don't want to let them like fall to make their own mistakes, and it's a scale, it's a range.
Hmm.
Where do you want this impact of learning from their own mistakes, or you actually, and that's back to parenting as well, right? It's
Right.
like if you maybe don't care that much about your colleagues getting burned and doing something stupid, but you definitely don't want your kid to play with matches or whatever just to learn
Right.
the lesson that you don't do that. So it's a trade-off.
It is. Well, and just to clarify, since my wife exclaimed from the other room, I'm bad at this, right? There's no getting around it, and it is not an easy thing to do. You know, it's one of those challenges of age, of experience, but good times. So other than moving and getting really good at packing and unpacking and re-automating your home, what have you been doing sort of during this pandemic to kind of maintain sanity? Have you picked up any new hobbies, habits?
So I was really bad for like a full year or maybe more, just like in denial that it's getting worse, like my personal mental health and
Sure.
what's not, up to the way that I really missed this point in time when I something had to be done. And I went into a pretty significant burnout because of that. And
Sure.
then this is where we kind of said, well, enough is enough, and we're just going to clear our heads. And we went to like a trip for a month and a half, like no computers, no work, nothing, just clean the head. It helped. That was a failure on my part in recognizing when that things have changed,
Right.
and the online conferences are not the same as what I live from, and that's like engagement with the community and
Yeah.
conferences and meetups and what's not. And it doesn't give me the same energy back as the face-to-face activities. And I think this is where kind of I dropped the ball. Um, I would say uh, it's unfortunate that we don't see it. I mean, the real face to face coming back. For me, I would say that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I miss the most. Just for you to understand how desperate I am, a couple of weeks ago, I flew all the way to Russia from Tennessee to speak at a meetup
Wow.
because they actually had, it was supposed to be a conference. The conference got canceled.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm coming anyway.
Oh, geez, that is a long trip, bud.
And I went there for like a one night meetup. It was a
No.
large meetup because people obviously missed that as well.
Right.
So we had like 100 people in the audience. It was
Yeah.
great. But yeah, the things are that bad.
Yeah, I have not been on an airplane since I think coming back from probably SACon New York, or it was DevNexus. I can't remember which was my last show, and I don't know how to feel about it. I've actually do have a flight coming up this fall, but I'm guardedly optimistic, I guess. But so speaking of Russia, this is a question I did want to ask you about. What do you think is what are some of the biggest misconceptions about Russia? I've never been. It's on my list. You know, you and I've worked a couple times trying to get me over there, but what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about Russia?
I think the biggest one is that Moscow is Russia
Sure.
when it's not. It's really like a country of its own, when its own culture, when its
Hmm.
own like it's there are more differences between Moscow and the rest of Russia than similarities.
Sure.
Moscow and St. Petersburg to a point, because those are huge cities that concentrate most of a certain type of people,
Mm.
which are ambitious, but also kind of I would say how to probably put it. Uh, um, Probably just very very narrow focused on their goal in mind,
Okay.
that came there to kind of conquer the world, and they won't hesitate to step over heads and bodies for that.
Sure.
This kind of vibe, right? When it has its pros and cons, and the pros are obviously it's a great place to visit in terms of just come to hang out. There are great scene of restaurants and music and whatever you name it. Just because of that vibe and because of how ambitious people in the end of the day are, a lot of them are successful, and that shows. And then the rest of the country is much more laid back
Sure.
and friendly to an extent. Friendly and Russia in one sentence is kind of oxymoron, but to an extent,
Right.
and it's definitely different.
Sure.
So yeah, so this is, I would say, the biggest difference that you need to to think about when you come there. But when you come to visit, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
It's just, St. Petersburg is beautiful and Moscow is beautiful, and you just spend there like 2 days in the conference and 1 day touring the city, and it feels great.
Sure.
That's kind
Sure.
of the short version of it. And the rest is just, when people live there, it's all different. It's the same with Israel, of course, right?
Sure.
That's another country that I lived for 25 years there, and I love it with all my heart. And it's amazing to come there, and I miss it like tremendously when I'm not there. Living there, it's a completely different story.
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah, that's very true. We don't always get to experience. We get sort of that cursory experience when we do a lot of our travel. We're kind of in and out. A couple days, maybe we stick around for a day or two of touring, and we don't get that lived in experience in the same way. But yeah. So you just took a big trip. What city were you most excited about getting to? What country most excited about getting to? I mean, you I'm very impressed with your travels here over the summer here, buddy. I'm with you.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely needed that. It was a medical necessity almost.
Yeah.
So we loved a lot of what we saw. Croatia is Dubrovnik especially is just majestic.
Yeah.
And if you watched Game of Thrones and used to love it
Yes.
before season 5,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a great place to visit for the memories and everything. Split is less known because Dubrovnik it's kind of it's the star of Croatia, but Split is amazing as well.
Wow.
It's small, but it has the character of the old European city and everything. We loved Porto. Porto is amazing. Dura Valley, if you are a fan of sweet dessert wines like we are, that's the mecca for dessert wines and ports, and that was dreamy. We spent a whole day there.
Awesome.
We went to the concierge in the hotel and asked them where should we go, and she's like, I'll plan all day for you, so you'll visit like one winery, and I'm like, make it 5. And she's like, what do you mean 5? I mean, I want to visit 5 wineries in one day. Yes, in one day. She's like, okay. So that was amazing as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Mykonos and Santorini, the Greek islands are just paradise. So yeah, we hit a lot of very nice places this summer, and it was so great that not a lot of tourists were there.
Yeah.
So all the places when you stay in line for like 3 hours to just get there, like the three bells of Mykonos, you probably know this picture. Yep. The blue roofs on white churches and the sea beyond it.
Yep.
right? So that's kind of the canonical picture. To take this picture, you usually stand for hours in line.
Sure.
There was no one there.
Right.
So that was another very, very nice kind of uh, mm, how do I say it? Unexpected effect of COVID, if you wish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So Neil says apparently that folks in Moscow are tired of American tourists who would apparently show up in the souvenir shop. Now he's saying this is from 2004-ish. Where's the shirt that says Russia on it and not in your language?
Yeah, yeah,
Tourists
it's
are
kind of
great.
it's a completely different culture. I
Yeah,
mean, it's very, very different, and it's very interesting to come and visit and then say thank you and go home.
right, right. See, I've always felt that was the fun part about our job, the fact that we get to go visit so many of these places that folks don't get a chance to go to. And I mean, that's one of the things I miss is being part of these places, visiting, just steeping in that culture and the food and everything else. I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of what we do is being able to see that and experience that. And it for me has always been an interesting reminder of just how similar we all are, and I've always found that powerful. And plus you end up running into some really fascinating stuff, and I don't know, I guess that's one of the things I'm really really missing out on, in addition to, as you said earlier, the human contact.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I love travel. I mean, I see all the people that getting like humble bragging about it. Oh, I'm so tired from those airports and everything. And I'm like, ah, come on, you love it. This is
Yeah,
why you do it.
yeah,
I never complained about it because I do love it. Yes, it's tiring, but in the end of the day, it's so awesome. And
yeah,
I keep being amazed of our ability to actually do that,
right,
right? I mean, this Louis C.K. sketch about how everything is great and everybody are complaining
right.
when he speaks about like, and then you fly in the
Yeah.
sky like a bird. It's a
Hmm.
miracle.
Hmm.
That's the feeling that I feel every time.
Hmm.
It is miracle that we can be one day here, the
Yeah.
next day across the ocean,
Yep.
meet different people, see different places. It's a blessing, and I miss it a lot.
Yeah, 100% agree. I've had that same kind of feeling where you're like, yeah, this is amazing. Last night I was at home, and now today I'm, in Paris, or I'm in the UK or wherever it happens to be, and yeah, and then I'll be home in a couple days. I mean, that's just, you think about how small the world has gotten that way, versus it wasn't even that long ago where the journeys you and I are talking about would have taken days or weeks. They would have been a one-way trip. There would have been none of this. You're going to Moscow for a night? Like, no, that doesn't, you can't do that. And now we're just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll bomb in, bomb out. That's fine.
Exactly,
Modulo
exactly,
COVID at least.
exactly. And then, like again, going back to the same sketch, you travel so long that you arrive a completely different set of people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's keep amazing me, especially the way back, right?
Yeah.
When you actually depart in the morning
Yes.
from like thousands of miles away,
Right.
and by the evening you eat dinner with your family.
Right. Right. Yeah, the one that always blows me away is when you cross the date line, and you leave Sydney at 7, 8, 9 in the morning, and you land in LA at 6 a.m. the same morning.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
do know conceptually you didn't go backwards in time, but you kind of feel like you did. And then you keep flying in their direction. You're like, okay, that's really weird. Like I'm home and it's before I left. Like, how did that happen?
Exactly. No, I love it. I really love it. I really love to travel, and you know what? I mean, the entire I knew that I love it, but all this pandemic thing actually proved that how much I miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm guardedly optimistic 22 will be normal-ish. I know some of the stuff from the fall's already gotten pushed out or canceled, and that's really unfortunate, although I completely understand. I don't know how comfortable folks are going to be gathering in large numbers anytime soon, but fingers crossed that we'll get through this before too much longer.
I now help a conference, the same one that we spoke about in Russia, to kind of source speakers for their online gig. And I continue the conversations back from March 2020, and I see where we left off, and it was like, then we spoke about the conference in April of 2020.
Hmm.
It obviously didn't happen, but we didn't know that back in March.
Right.
And we're just like, well, fingers crossed this whole virus thing will blow off before the conference.
Right. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. I remember being in New York having conversation with people, and I remember getting frustrated that we were getting held on travel, into like April or something. And I'm like, come
Yeah.
on, I've got these back-to-back events and I got everything scheduled, and they're like, sorry, nothing we can do. And then it was maybe 2 weeks later, we're like, yeah, we're done. Like all of our events for the rest of the year are canceled. Nobody's going anywhere. I mean, it was just such, I mean, I taught in person at the U until spring break. And in spring break, that was the last time I saw those students in person, and the last time I went on campus until maybe this fall. I don't know. I'm not sure. Can't we start up here in about 2 weeks? Your guess is as good as mine as to whether or not I'm on campus or not, but we shall see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember we spoke about it, blew away in a couple of months,
Right.
and here we are. So yeah, fingers crossed that 2022 will be better, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
For now, yeah, I'm blessed that we managed to get this month and a half between the
Yeah.
waves.
Good
And
timing.
this is yeah, perfect timing, and small wins.
Yeah. Well, let me throw a few lightning round questions at you, and then we'll declare victory. What's your comfort meal, your favorite meal? What makes you feel like home or just happy, whatever you want to call it?
So I love steaks.
Mm,
Yeah, another good reason to be in the South.
yes. I just
Yeah.
made a Wagyu tri-tip last night.
Yeah.
So other
Yeah.
than it taking
Exactly.
3.5 hours, it was, yeah, exquisite.
Yeah.
So I made
Exactly.
my friend and former colleague Paul unfortunately informed me there is a very high end butcher not too far from my house, and we have become regulars, which is good for their bottom line, not so good for my food budget. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm a regular ordering Omaha steaks, and yeah, I've been. Yeah, it's a big statement, the big spending, that's for sure.
yeah,
And the other downside is that I cannot barely eat steaks anywhere in
yeah,
the world. I
yeah.
remember enjoying the steaks in Russia and Israel and Europe and what's not. Now it's just like it's all
No,
horrible meat to me.
there is a very good steak place in Krakow that I have habituated a few times when I've been there. So
Yeah, maybe I'm now very skeptical about
oh, I hear you. And you should be.
European meat in
You
general,
should be.
unfortunately. Yeah, yeah.
Now Spain, I can highly recommend a good steak in Barcelona. So we'll
The
trade notes.
only decent steak we ate in Spain was actually in Barcelona, but it was Argentinian restaurant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I did find a Spanish restaurant. They had their own herd of cows,
Oh,
and it was, yes, very tasty, very tasty. I'll have to
nice.
text you that one. So coffee, espresso, or tea?
Espresso and espresso based milk drinks like lattes, cappuccinos, this kind of stuff.
Love it. You and I are in the same wavelength there. Pie or cake?
Uh, I guess cake.
Okay,
If you already go into like dessert, make it like dessert, because
sure.
pie it's a great food.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. So
Dessert are cakes. Yeah.
yeah, all right. Now, like you and I are both in the center here of the United States. You're just a little south of me. Oceans or mountains? Since we have neither.
Oh, that's generally oceans,
Okay.
but you know what? After years in Israel by the amazing Mediterranean Sea, you find
Mhm.
yourself go to the beach once a year just because you it's a beach.
Right.
But between that and climbing mountains, beach. Yeah.
Okay. So it's lunchish time. Food truck or Michelin stars?
Michelin stars all the
Oh
way.
yeah.
Oh
It,
yeah. Oh
that
yeah.
that
Oh
has
yeah.
been one of my biggest disappointments. Is my all time favorite restaurant. I now have not eaten at in 2 years, and it's driving me nuts. But and I still haven't taken my wife there, so she's getting grumpy. But it'll happen.
Yeah, no, Michelin stars is one of the most profound experiences in my life. I never realized that food can actually taste this way.
Right, right. Yeah, it's just elevated to a whole nother level. So yeah,
It's like you cannot believe on what's going on in your mouth. It's like nothing that you tried before.
you and I'll have to find a way to make that Venn diagram overlap. We will have to go find some stars we can knock down.
Absolutely.
So ebook or a paper book when it comes time to read?
Ebook. I get the vibe of the paper book, but in the end of the day, the practical value of ebook, the fact that you can stack as many books that you like, you can download them on the fly and install in tiny and lightweight format, kind of it overweights the feelings of the paper book that I completely get.
Yeah, completely agree. So you mentioned this from Croatia, but Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
It's like the complete thing is amazing as opposite to, well, they started great and then fucked everything up.
Yeah, that's true. My biggest disappointment with Game of Thrones is that last season really should have been 2 seasons or should have been longer episodes or something. They just sort of really rushed to wrap it up, and I don't entirely understand what the theory was there, but
yeah, no, I think from the point that kind of the books ended and they found themselves by themselves, not knowing what to do, this is where it all went to hell.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Action comedy or drama?
Depends on the mood, but I guess mostly action comedy based on the percentage of the mood that I know myself in.
Sure. Yeah. That's fair. Notes app or a notebook?
Neither. I will lose the notebook. My handwriting is so awful that I will probably not be able to read what I write. So definitely not notebook. Notes app, every couple of months, yay, let's start getting things done, managing lists, grooming the inbox and everything for like a week. And then it's like...
Well, I know I saw your out of office response was, I'm going to declare email bankruptcy when I get back, so I will not read this email.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. Oh God. So I know you've got cats, as my cat is decided it's bath time. Dogs or cats?
Oh, definitely cats. I mean, no, that's super clear. Dogs are great. Cats are greater.
Yeah.
They're just superior beings to all of us, including like dogs and humans. So
yeah, I've often joked that if reincarnation is a thing, I want to come back as a well-kept house cat, because it seems like a pretty darn good gig, to say the least. Your food dish never runs out.
You have all those humans at your disposal that you just manage them, and exactly.
I saw a sign, and it might actually have been in Nashville, now that I think about it. It was on like a grooming place, like for animals, and it said, dogs have owners, cats have staff.
So, or humans. The version I heard was like cats have humans.
Right. Yeah. No, I make, there's no bones about it that Han thinks that we're his staff, and he's not too far off on that, as he's stolen my wife's chair.
And that's definitely, it's just respect.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Tip of the hat. So
yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure.
Well, my man, I could hang out with you for another hour, but I know you got a real job. You got to unearth all that email and probably pack up and unpack again a couple more times. But thanks for hanging out with me, buddy. I really appreciate it.
That was great. It was just so nice to actually speak with humans.
Right. It's
that so much.
I've been doing this about a year now, and it really is like the highlight of my week is getting to hang out with my friends for an hour-ish and just sort of, shoot the shit and what's going on, how's things. And it's just a reminder to me of how much I miss the normal interaction that you and I would have inevitably had at least once or twice this year. And, so try to make it happen where we can, but I'm guardedly optimistic.
It's definitely better than nothing. And you see me smiling just because it was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and hey, have I hope you don't have too many ice storms this year. And
there is Ida coming our way.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, no, but it's all. It looks like it will be just a lot of rain, which is
Sure.
great.
Yeah, that's
After
fine.
California and Israel, I definitely welcome rain.
Yeah, we've been on a rain tear here for reasons that are obscure to me. It didn't rain basically for 3 months, and it's been raining almost nonstop since. So I guess we're trying to make up for all that. I don't know. It's just in time for my son's fall soccer season to kick off, I guess. But anyway.
Yeah. My youngest plays football. He had the game on Saturday after in the pouring rain, and it was so much fun for him. He loved it.
It's fun to play in. It's
Yeah.
terrible as a spectator
Oh
because
no! I didn't stay. No.
yeah,
I mean, it's
that's
pouring.
smart. You're like,
No.
you're good. You're good. Have
Yeah.
fun. Have fun. I'll be back
Exactly.
in like an hour or something. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
All right, well, my
Hey,
friend,
it
thank you
was
very much.
great.
I appreciate it. We're off next week for the I guess we call that Labor Day holiday for those of you still observing time. But then after that, I get a chance to hang out with my one of my newest colleagues, Whitney Lee will be hanging out with me. So we'll see what
Oh,
kind of
this
trouble
is
I can
cool.
sit to. Yeah, yeah. So, well, thank you again, my friend. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye bye.